Hello and welcome to Theology on Tap. Today I want to talk about marriage. I think this will be the first of maybe 2 or 3 videos I want to make on marriage, because I really do believe marriage is the solution for majority of the problems in the world. I mean, obviously marriage can fix natural disasters and whatnot, but when it comes to social ills, I think having a good relationship with your spouse, having a good family could, pretty much solve a lot of the problems in the world. That's what I think anyways. That's my opinion. So, the trend of these days, though, however, is that people just don't get married, or they wait until in their 30s or 40s to get married. And I don't like this trend, and I'm just going to talk about why. But it's not that, my opinions are going to change the way people think and whatnot, but it's just the reality of today is the fact that people just don't get married. So I found this article on Bloomberg that talking about the decline of marriage is actually hurting businesses in Vegas and other places. It is kind of sad, and I started actually presiding or officiating weddings about 20 years ago. I started doing it, and I do have to say, in the beginning, 20 years ago, I used to do a lot of weddings in the church, but now majority of the times, I say a good 90% of the times, I'm actually doing ceremonies that's not within the church, but outside of the church. So, I mean, that's the change, what can you say? Things change, and there's nothing we can do to stop changes from happening, right? That's what I say. And also what I realized is also recently, back in 20 years ago, or back then, the wedding ceremony itself was very important, and, food that comes afterwards was secondary, so a lot of people spent a lot of time preparing for the ceremony more so than the reception. But now that has flipped as well. Reception is so fun with a lot of alcohol and whatnot, which is perfectly great, but less time, And one wedding I did not that long ago, about last year, earlier this year, the couple wanted, it was a hot day, and it was an outdoor wedding. It was closing on, 100 degrees outside, and the couples asked me before the ceremony actually began. They said, hey, I want the ceremony to be about 10 minutes long, and that's it. So it's their wedding, not mine. So I actually did the whole wedding from the time people walked in and until they kissed the husband and wife. They kissed. It was 10 minutes long, and people loved it. Weird. Anyways, so the fact is, when it comes to marriage, let me read this to you. Half of the Americans older than 18 were married in 2014. So half of Americans in 2014 were married. Back in 1960, 72% of those of us who were 18 and over were married. 72%. So majority of the people back in 1960s, being married and having a family was a priority. But now it's only 50%, which is still good, but as you say, is declining. Right? And as of 2014, it says this: almost 75% of women with bachelor's degree were married by the time they were 40 years old, versus 60% of women with only high school diploma. All right? So nowadays, different than a long time ago, people who have higher education, tend to get married. But the problem is they do get married later on later in their age rather than early. All right. So I think the big difference between the 1960s and today, in my opinion, and some people say, well, it's about money and whatnot. But yeah, money has something to do with it too. But how we make our money. Today, education became the focus. Education is the most important thing. Everybody says that education is important. Education is important. I always told my children, education is important, but it's not that important. It really isn't that important. My wife never went to college, but she actually makes more money than I do. It really depends on your persistence, in your motivation, your desire, what you want to do and whatnot. But if you focus on education and whatnot, obviously you're not going to get married until you're later on in your life, or you might never even get married. Why? Because I think higher education is a place where you would say that the old traditional values is laughed at. Christianity is definitely laughed at. They don't like it. It seems to me like anyways. So obviously the focus has definitely has changed. All right, likewise, childbearing, this article says, outside of marriage is also depends on schooling. So more than 70%, more than 70% of young mothers with only a high school education had at least one child while single. 70% having child when they're single. That's pretty high. But for those who has higher education, it's only about 30%. So there's a huge difference, you know. And, you know, personally, I don't mind, you know, I'm not this kind of a Christian that says you can never ever have sex before marriage, because it really doesn't matter what I think is right or wrong. People at young age are gonna have sex anyways. But it's always a wonder to me, it really is that why are they having children when they're not married? That's always a thing in my mind. And with these days, you have IUDs, you have contraception, you have rubber, you have morning, day after pills, to all sorts of different ways to stop. But people still get pregnant, you know, and I think that's the, I don't know, I don't want to say that's the beginning of an end, but it really depends on your circumstances. It is not a good thing. All right, so it says main reason why you are not married. These are the main reasons why people are not married. For those people who are in their 18 to 24 age, it's the number one reason they're not ready to settle down. Obviously, you're a little too young. That was number one reason. And financially, you might not be that prepared as well. For those who are between 25 to 34, and this is a huge gap, 10-year gap, 25 to 34. Now, when I was growing up, if you're 25, in between 25 and 34, you were married over, you know, I guess the study says over 70%. But everybody I knew were married around that time, 25 to 34. In fact, back in the 90s, when I studied marriage and family, it said that the most successful marriages, the most successful ones in United States of America, happens when a man is in between 24 to 26 years old. I mean, that's pretty early. And I have a theory on that. Basically, when you're young, right, and you get married, you grow old together, you work, and you make money together. So it's not really about, hey, this is your money, this is my money, trying to figure out who brings in money and what we're gonna do with the money. It just becomes a family money, right? Because you're building your things together, and you buy your first house together and all that. So it just becomes more of a family kind of a decision. So 24 to 26 used to be the most successful. I don't know what it is today, because so many people are getting married later. But number one reason for 25 to 34 age group for not being married yet is not financially prepared. And I really think this is the trap, you know, not financially prepared. Because back when I was growing up, nobody cared whether we were, well, I'm sure some people cared. I actually didn't care whether financially I was ready to get married or not. No, marriage came first and then finances. So when we got married, then we could figure things out, right? So when it comes to wedding ceremonies and whatnot, you know, you have the ceremonies what you could afford. You might put some money in Visa and things like that, but most of the times, you know, people give gifts when you're getting married, so you spend the money to, you know, have the ceremony. In my culture, in Asian American community, the amount of money they spend on wedding day and the reception with all the alcohol people consume is ridiculous. It's so high. People are spending a lot of money. I mean, God bless them. They have the money, go ahead and spend it. But for people to say, I'm not financially ready to get married, is not a good reason. However, for those who are 25 to 34 years old, number one reason for not being married yet is financially not prepared. To me, I mean, personally, I find it kind of sad, but it's just the way it is. And then 35 and over, number one reason for not being married, they haven't found what they're looking for. Haven't found what you're looking for. And, you know, people always, you know, a lot of people ask me, how do you know you found the right person or not? And I don't have an answer to that, basically, you know, as long as, I don't know. I mean, you could say, well, you should be this way, you should be this way, you should be that way, and you're still gonna have a problem. You know, I actually knew a guy in seminary who didn't date. You know, he was too busy, he said, but I think he was too much of a chicken to date with girls. to ask out a girl. But he never really went on a date. But he was getting older. He was in his late 20s at the time. Yeah, late 20s. And he was praying. And God came to him in his prayer and showed a face of a woman that he was going to get married to. Never seen her before. A few weeks later, he went to this church that he's never been to. He sees the girl of his dreams, literally, of his dreams, of his vision. And he goes and talks to her, and they got married. I think 6-7 months after they meet, they got married. A little too early in my opinion, but hey, God ordained them to be married. So a year later, I asked him how the marriage was going. I mean, this is God ordained marriage, so how's it going? And he's just like, man, it's tough. Right? It's tough. Marriage is going to be difficult. I understand that. So when you say you haven't found what you're looking for, what are you looking for? You know, you think you know what you're looking for? And if you figure out what you're looking for and you find that person, you think you're going to have problems or not? You know, life is problem. I mean, that's what life is. You know, we're going to have tribulations. And part of it is marriage, because in marriage, you have to give yourself to your spouse and vice versa, and you have to figure things out. It doesn't matter you get along or not get along to whatever may be. It's gonna be struggles, right? But when you get to be 35 years old or so, you think you're smart enough, you know what you want, so people are always like, I haven't found somebody that they're looking for. Maybe they haven't found somebody they're looking for because all the ones they're looking for is married already, right? That's why I say get married early. You know, you pick, there's a tremendous amount of people you could pick from. You know, by the time you're 35, what is that? You got only 50% people available. Anyway, that's just the way it goes these days. People are not getting married. It's hurting Vegas. And you know, I'm sure a lot of businesses are hurting because of it. Personally, I always wanted, it's been a dream of mine, that my church will be like a wedding center as well as a place you could eat, drink, and be happy. It would be nice to see people getting married, because if you go to a wedding ceremony, everybody's happy, right? At least for that day, everybody's happy. But you know what I get from this article, basically, is that before, family was important. Marriage was very important. We put marriage first. I know when I was growing up, man, I just couldn't wait to get married. You know, was I ready to get married or not? It was not even a question. It was more like, I'm going to jump right in and then we're going to make it work. You know, that was the attitude. By the time I was 24, I picked the love of my life, and I got married when I was 26, and so far it's been wonderful and great. Did I know whether she was the perfect person for me or not? I don't know. You know, who's to say? You know, some of these Hollywood stars that come out and say, oh, he or she is my, what? Not destiny. What is it? Dang, I forgot that word. I don't know, the word that say, you know, we're meant to be, right? We were meant to be. I forget that word. Anyway, but then a year or two later, they get divorced. You know, there's no such thing. Everything, you're going to have to put the effort into it, right? You got to learn to get along with one another. And that's the fun of it. I enjoy that. You know, I enjoy trying to have a family and to make my wife and to raise my kids well. I think it was a great journey. Anyway, but once again, I think the number one reason why people don't get married these days, they're afraid that they don't have enough money, and they're afraid that they haven't found the right person. That's about it, basically. So we have become money-focused society more so than family-focused. And that's what I personally get out of it. It's just the way it is. Things have changed. I wish it was way back. It goes, not back. Let's say, I wish from now on we could go forward and to say, you know what, family is more important, and marriage is more important. And best way to have a good marriage is to get married early. I mean, that's what every study shows. Early as in, 24 to 26. Then we don't have to worry about finances and whatnot. You'll grow together, but just the way it is. What can we do as Christians to promote marriage out of all people? I don't know. I don't know what it is. Work really hard, I would say, to make your marriage, if you're married, make it work. Make it work. Work hard to make it work. And be an example. Because marriage is good. In my opinion, I always thought being married was freedom. But nowadays it seems like being single is freedom, and I don't understand that. Why do you think you're free when you're single? You become like a slave to, you know, to society, I think, right? Trying to figure out what you want to do every weekend, things like that. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm gonna make one more video on marriage, so please stay tuned. Please like this video, share it, and let other people know about this channel, because you're gonna hear things in this channel that you never heard of before. I guarantee it, when it comes to Christianity. So whether you're a Christian or not Christian, right, you're gonna really have to have an open mind to understand where I'm coming from, right? I think Christians will be bugged by me more than non-Christians, but we'll see. God bless you, and I'll definitely see you next time.